7 years ago, Pei-du, a wealthy young man who had loved me deeply, cheated on me. 7 years later, I returned to Hong Kong to raise my child alone. When we met again, Pei-du stared at my child's face, which was almost exactly like his. He was determined to get it, give birth to my child secretly. Xu Jiao, you really love me, I said helplessly. This child is not yours. Later, Pei-du looked at the paternity test results in disbelief. He gritted his teeth and said, if I say it's mine. It's mine. He wanted to tear up the report, but his uncle stopped him calmly. Is it yours? You just snatched it. The day I returned to Hong Kong City, I didn't expect that I would meet the little overlord Pei-du. 7 years ago, he was the most arrogant young man in City University and the nephew of the wealthy businessman Pei Yunjian. He is handsome and dazzling, with dyed shiny silver hair and several earrings. In order to pursue me, he dared to tattoo my name on his ribs. 7 years later, he dyed his hair back to black, looked a little thinner, wore a crisp and expensive suit, and there was a hint of cruelty between his eyebrows. I clenched the champagne glass, my brows jumped, and I felt as if his eyes had swept over me, so I quickly stepped back into the crowd. His expression remained unchanged. He turned his head slightly and continued to chat and laugh with the people around him. Probably didn't see me. I suppressed my anxiety and comforted myself that it had been 7 years and he should have forgotten who I was. A friendly business suddenly spoke up. Hey, isn't that Mr. Pei from Yunmaro Group? The purpose of this banquet was to discuss cooperation and trade in the port. The business friend pulled me aside and whispered, you may not know since you have never been to Gangcheng. Pei Yunjian, the chairman of Yunmaro Group, had an accident a few years ago. Now it is this young Mr. Pei who is here. My heart trembled. Before I could react, my competitor had already raised his glass, took me by the hand, and led a few people to toast Pei-du. Pei-du glanced over indifferently, then turned sideways to face me. His eyes were deep and heavy, and he could see me clearly. I suddenly felt a strange sense of guilt. 7 years ago, when I learned that he had a new love, I decisively blocked all contact information, packed my bags, and left Hong Kong, but I was young and hot-headed at that time. And I always felt that leaving quietly would be a disadvantage for me, so I left a note and stuck it on his car for passers-by to see. The content is very offensive. The green version roughly says wild dogs in heat, go to hell. Now, he has become President Pei. I, who once called him a dog, have now become a corporate slave dependent on others. It is inevitable that some adults will be afraid of power and wealth after realizing the true cruelty of society. I feel guilty because I am afraid of being retaliated against. Since I have a little treasure to protect, I am even more cautious. Hey, Mr. Pei, long time no see. You are still as handsome and elegant as ever. The friendly business began the cliched compliments and toasts. The people around him responded one after another and toasted. For this investment, all the small companies wanted to rely on Yunmaro Group. And the representatives of each company naturally wanted to make themselves familiar to him. Pei-du just nodded and asked his secretary to drink for him. I forced myself to laugh along with everyone else, not daring to show any abnormality, and pretending that I was just a stranger seeking investment. It's my turn to toast. I smiled businesslike and said, Mr. Pei, nice to meet you. He stopped nodding, stared at me, speechless for a moment. I had no choice but to add, it's our first meeting. Please give me your guidance in the future. I drank it all in one gulp. The secretary smiled and was about to raise his glass to drink. Pei-du raised his champagne glass. The secretary looked at him in surprise and put down his glass silently. He pinched the cup with 2 fingers and turned it gently, then raised his head and glanced at me quickly and lightly through the champagne glass. Then look up. The drink was a little skewed, Adam's apple rolling. Pei-du drank slowly, his eyes always lowered. Staring at me, he drank the whole glass himself, which seemed to give me enough face, but the glass slammed heavily into the tray, which seemed to be full of unhappiness. He sneered, ha, and responded to my words, nice to meet you. I was completely speechless. No matter how much I try to avoid it, I have to admit it. Pei-du recognized me. His secretary is very good at socializing and said that only small talk will be discussed at the party tonight, not business matters. A group of people chatted idly about the horse racing club, golf and recent policies, and secretly inquired about Peidu's preferences. He spoke little and listened a lot, and just drank a few more glasses of wine in silence. He was drunk and his eyes were red. Peidu suddenly asked, "Miss Shu, are you married?" Everyone stopped talking and laughing, and their eyes fell on me. Only then did they notice the tiny silver light mark that was visible through the glass wall from my ring finger that was tucked behind the cup. It's a vegetarian ring. Peidu didn't know how long he had been staring at him. "It's quite early to get married at 28, he said nonchalantly. I suddenly remembered that when my love for him was still strong, Peidu also got too excited, hugged me tightly, and shouted, "We can get married secretly, without asking for permission. And those old pedants at home can't control me." I calmly said, "Getting married at 21, how can I afford to raise a child or buy a house? So when do you want to get married? At least you should be successful in your career by the age of 30. Marrying me for 30, it's me, can't you change it? Can't you compromise?" No. I came to my senses and inadvertently saw Peidu's bare ring finger. Only then did he realize that it was strange that he hadn't married his arranged marriage partner yet. "Peidu, I think Miss Shu is a person who is obsessed with work. What does a man who can make you willing to give up your career and marry him look like?" He took another big gulp of wine, unable to control his expression. Even though he clenched his teeth and puffed up his cheeks, he still revealed a hint of sarcasm. He tried hard to look calm and composed, but his smile froze. Amid the noise of others chatting in groups of 2 or 3 about investment trends, fine wines, and horse racing, he suppressed his voice to the point of distortion. Pretending to be casual, she asked lightly, "I'm just suddenly curious, what kind of person is your husband? Is he as good-looking as me?" I pretended to be calm and tried to maintain the surface of unfamiliarity and politeness. "Boss Pei, you're joking. This is my family matter and I can't disclose it." Peidu's face became increasingly ugly. I made an excuse. Left in a hurry, hid in the empty terrace, and sighed. "The wedding ring is of course just a cover. After having my baby, I wear a wedding ring when I go out to ward off gossip." The cell phone suddenly rang. Xiaobao's voice is very babyish. I couldn't help laughing. "Baby, you're still awake." "Me, I'm still working. I'll be back tomorrow." I smiled and said, "Miss me?" "I miss you too. Can you kiss me?" Suddenly, I heard the sound of the curtain being pulled open. The smell of alcohol filled the air. The next person to walk in was Peidu, who had dark eyes and red corners of his eyes. I quickly hung up the phone. "Boss Pei, what are you doing?" He interrupted me and said, "Shu Jiao, you are talking to a grown man in such a strangled voice, like you are coaxing a child. It's disgusting." He tried to hold it back, but couldn't hold it back, and blurted out, "Have you ever spoken to me in that tone?" I didn't expect that this would be the first question he asked me after we met again after such a long time, but I have long lost the hot temper I had when I was young. It is said that love is as vast as the sea of hatred. Sometimes the stronger the love, the longer the hatred will last. Now, in my eyes, Peidu is just a passerby. I said calmly, "No, Mr. Pei." Peidu's face turned pale and he glared at me. "How dare you admit it?" "Me, what's there to be embarrassed about, Mr. Pei?" I put away my phone and walked past him. "Boss Pei, let's talk business. You are the center of this party. Don't stay in a corner with a small person like me." I glanced at him and said, "After all, I am not worthy of you. I am a shameless gold digger who licked you hard." Peidu's face turned pale instantly. This is what he said in his novel. At that time, he was hugging his new love, drinking, and never said a word to defend me. "You were there too," he whispered, "so you heard everything." I said nothing, opened the curtain and left. After so many years, the sadness and pain that I felt at that time have evaporated quietly and silently like water drops on a mirror, but a hand tightly held me, blocking my way. Qin Shui and I were just playing around. At the time, a group of people were making a fuss while playing the game, and I was put on the defensive and had no choice but to kiss her. Peidu spoke quickly. He frowned. "It's not a big mistake, is it? I love you." But I was only 21 years old at the time. I was young, I had money, and I hadn't had enough fun. It was just a kiss and I didn't do anything else. "Why do you have to do that?" I sneered. I didn't want to get involved, but he came to me anyway. Peidu became more and more depressed as he spoke. And he refused to give in. Xu Jiao, rich second generations like us are born with everything we want, and other men play even more ruthlessly. You haven't seen it. Some of them directly have more than a dozen women, soak in the swimming pool and play the ring toss game with them. You've only been my only one since college. I've had enough. I slapped him straight across the face. Peidu turned his head away, and the ring on my finger left a very obvious red mark on his cheek. He was stunned for a second. Slowly turn your face. Me, Peidu, am I your sponsor? I have never asked you for a penny. Why are you talking to me about the privileges of a rich second generation now? Peidu stared at me without saying a word until his eyes turned red. He stammered silently, and finally spoke. I just want to ask you, are you doing well? He gave a humble advice. Let the past be the past. Can't we start over? I didn't answer. Get out of the way. Let me go. Peidu took a deep breath and whispered in the night wind. Yes, I have some things wrong and I don't understand them clearly. I always hurt you, but you have to say it out loud, just like you did just now. You slapped me a few times, scolded me a few times, and explained things clearly, then I will understand, right? But you can't just walk away like you did before without saying anything but curse words to me. You can't do that. After you left, I kept thinking about you. Xu Jiao, without you, my life is boring. Me, none of my business. I pushed him away, lifted the curtain and walked out onto the terrace. That night, I received a text message from an unknown number. Divorce him. I deleted and blocked it directly. But I received a text message from another number. Your slap doesn't hurt at all. Xu Jiao, you made me feel good. I pressed the lighter hard, lit a cigarette, and stared at the phone gloomily. Delete and blacklist. Peidu's text messages multiplied like cockroaches. Jiao Jiao, I have a lot of phone cards. Don't block me. What will you do if I get too tired? I couldn't stand it any longer. Peidu, what do you want? I am very fond of your company's intention to cooperate, but I would like to ask Manager Xu to take the time to discuss the details of the contract with me. I sneered. Conditions. I will pick you up at the hotel at 3 p.m. tomorrow for the family dinner. My uncle finally woke up and has completely recovered recently. Jiao Jiao, I promised you to meet the elders, and I will keep my promise. I stared at the words, closed my eyes, and said, I understand. The cigarette in my hand has burned to my fingertips. I came to my senses and quickly turned it off, staring solemnly at the moonlight outside the hotel window. Raising a child is not easy. Tuition fees, tutoring fees, and various miscellaneous expenses eventually turned me into a sophisticated office worker. 7 years ago, I would have definitely spat at Peidu and then decisively refused, thinking that I could never bow my head and serve the powerful. But now, if this project can really connect the company with Yunmaro Group, then my promotion and salary increase are just around the corner. It is really not easy for married women with children to work hard in the workplace. I have experienced this bloody truth personally in recent years and have long understood it. I exhaled the smoke from my mouth gloomily. I couldn't help but laugh at myself. 7 years ago, I left all the gifts Peidu gave me in our apartment. But he never took away those luxury gifts that I bought him with the money I saved up hard. For the sake of integrity and self-respect, I left Hong Kong with a small suitcase. Did I know that 7 years later, I would become so materialistic and worldly? But the more you lose, the more precious you gain. I looked at the sleeping photo of Xiaobao on my phone and my heart softened. I have always wanted a child, a smart, lovely child who belongs only to me. His unexpected appearance perfectly fulfilled one of my wishes. It's like a gift from God. The latest news report suddenly popped up at the top of the phone screen, short, but full of gimmicks. Breaking news. Pei Yunjian had awakened last month. Will Yunmaro Group usher in a war between uncle and nephew? My eyes darkened, sighed. Peidu always does what he says. The next afternoon, just after 3 o'clock. The hotel manager politely knocked on the door and asked if I was ready to go out. I knew without thinking that the hotel was also owned by the Yunmaro Group. I thought about it, put on a professional dress, adopted a businesslike attitude, and went downstairs. Peidu was dressed simply. In a grey camel hair sweater and black trousers, out of respect for his young uncle, he rarely dressed in a way that was not so dazzling. He glanced at my clothes and said nothing. "You haven't met my uncle. He used to be quite gentle and was a well-known scholar merchant gentleman in Hong Kong. You don't have to worry too much." Peidu opened his mouth, hesitated for a moment, and then revealed cryptically, "He has some amnesia now, and I'm not sure what his temperament is like now." All the way in silence, Peidu led me directly into the Pei family. Just as I was about to walk towards the restaurant, I heard some rustling voices. I looked up and saw a group of nannies and housekeepers cautiously surrounding a man and leading him downstairs. The stars are surrounding the moon, and the person in the middle raises his eyes, just like the bright moon shining like a beautiful orchid or a jade tree. Peidu was born with good looks, but he inevitably had some of the problems of the rich second generation. His attitude is lazy and erratic. And from time to time he has a bored and evil taste that makes him want to destroy something, as if nothing matters because he has everything. But Pei Yunjian is a few years older than Peidu after all. Even though he has suffered a serious illness, his aura is still so strong. In the past, he always liked to be restrained and low-key, liked to solve things with a gentle smile, and his words were always expedient measures that benefited everyone. Now, perhaps because my body has not fully recovered and I lack energy, the indifference that is naturally in my bones cannot stop showing out. Peidu stood still. "Uncle." Pei Yunjian glanced at him and then looked at me. I lowered my head. He smiled and said, "Xiaoju is here." "Who is this?" I answered before Peidu could. "Hello, Mr. Pei. I am Xu Jiao, the export manager of Dinghui Company. I am here to discuss business with Mr. Pei. I just happened to hear that you have just recovered from a serious illness, so I took the liberty to prepare a small gift. I wish you a speedy and complete recovery." The more Peidu listened, the gloomier his expression became. I didn't look at him and handed the gift box containing the inkstone inlaid with gems to the servant next to me. Pei Yunjian is good at calligraphy. This is common knowledge, but few people know that he actually doesn't have a very patient personality. And he practices calligraphy only because he thinks of his deceased father who taught him calligraphy. The gift was given neither too far nor too close, and on the surface, it looked very appropriate, but I don't know him very well. Pei Yunjian really just glanced at me and smiled at me politely. "Manager Xu, let's sit down and have a simple meal together." I nodded politely, as if this was our first meeting. Peidu grabbed my arm and pulled me aside. He was very unwilling to complain. "You clearly know why I brought you here to meet my family. Do you have to pretend that nothing has happened to me?" I pulled my arm back and said, "Mr. Pei, I only agreed to come to the banquet. I didn't agree to anything else." Peidu's face suddenly changed. He was so angry that his fingers turned cold and he looked at me in frustration. "Xu Jiao, you weren't like this before." Yes, 7 years ago, Xu Jiao was not so cunning. At that time, she dared to love Peidu wholeheartedly and was ready to fight against the whole world for him. I worked hard to earn money, studied hard, and tried desperately to gain recognition from the Pei family someday in the future. At that time, Peidu always retreated, hunched his shoulders as if he had thought of some monster, and hesitantly advised, "Jiao Jiao, wait a little longer. When the time is more mature, I will take you to meet my family." "Okay, everyone else is fine, except my uncle. He took me with him after my dad passed away. He's like a brother, a father, and an uncle all in one. He's extremely scary." He kept delaying until that day when I happily saved money to buy him what he liked, and came to the door of the box, where I heard the icy laughter and the woman's coquettishness. In fact, Peidu said one thing wrong. His uncle was easier to please than he was. I glanced at Pei Yunjian, who was calm and composed. He showed no signs of anything unusual and was eating seriously. It seems that he really has lost his memory. I finally put my heart at ease. As long as this meal is completed, Peidu will have to sign the contract with our company as agreed. Once my business matters are settled, I can leave Hong Kong City as early as Monday. From now on, I will draw a clear line in the sand. My future is uncertain and I will never come to Hong Kong again. I took a bite of steak with great satisfaction. "Aunt Lee, change it for her. She likes it well done." Pei Yunjian wiped his mouth and gave the order casually. I was stunned. Pei-du was surprised. Uncle, did you know each other before? Pei Yunjian glanced at him, his eyes slightly cold, and he spoke slowly and softly. Oh, I just saw her expression. It seems that she is not used to the food. I was so nervous that my face was stiff. When I heard this, I was even a beat slower before I managed a smile. Thank you, Mr. Pei. My heart, which had just settled down, was hanging in the air because of what he just said, neither high nor low, and it was unpredictable. The phone started vibrating again. I had no choice but to take a break. When I glanced at the caller, my heart suddenly tightened. I hurriedly left the dining table and followed the servant's instructions to the small flower hall outside the terrace. Xiaobao is sick. Although the aunt who was taking care of him called me immediately, I was still a little anxious. He held the phone in his hand sickly, and asked me with his eyes downcast, "Mom, when will you come home? I miss you so much that I am sick." I coaxed him softly, "It will be back soon. If you miss me a lot, I will video call you a few more times every day." Okay, Xiaobao nodded obediently. I stared at the screen intently. Love always seems to be something that transcends reason and destroys plans. At first, I thought I had saved enough money to raise him, so I gave birth to him with peace of mind. But plans can't keep up with changes. Once you have a child, you always feel like you can still reach up a little bit. I want to try hard and replace the ordinary milk powder with high-priced milk powder. I want to try my best to see if I can get him into a better kindergarten with a better teacher. Desire thus arises, but it also positively motivates me to work harder. Shu Jiao, were you video chatting with another man in my house? Pei-du's voice suddenly came. He was still afraid of his uncle. So even though he was angry to the point of losing his mind, he tried his best to lower his voice. I frowned. Boss Pei, I have something urgent to deal with. Pei-du gritted his teeth, walked over, and kicked away the chair that was blocking his way. Do you have to do this? Do you have to cut my heart into pieces to be happy? Pei-du was furious. Do you know how much effort I put into arranging this meeting? I have said good things to so many people. Just so that if you are not accepted by your uncle, they can help persuade you. What about you? On the other end of the headset, Xiaobao asked in confusion who was talking. I hurriedly told him to hang up first and call back later. Someone grabbed my wrist forcefully and snatched my phone away. Pei-du, okay. I want to see what this brother looks like. I want to see if he can deceive you. His aggressive aura suddenly froze. Pei-du stared blankly at the phone screen. Xiaobao reacted quickly, curled up in the quilt, and hung up the call. But that mere half-second of footage seemed enough for Pei-du to capture some shocking secrets. He slowly lowered his arms, the video was interrupted, and the phone screen returned to the chat interface. Pei-du whispered those two words, "Mom," then he looked up at me. The hostility around him turned into a strange joy. Even her cheeks were slightly flushed. "It's Mom." I felt something was wrong, so I snatched back my phone and said with a stern face, "Mr. Pei, thank you for the invitation. I don't play role-playing games, so I'll take my leave now." Before I could finish my words, I turned around and ran away without hesitation. The mansion is so winding and so big that it looks like a maze. I recalled the way I came and rushed out quickly. But he almost bumped into Pei Yunjian. He looked at me deeply and made way. I nodded. "Thank you, Mr. Pei." But he called softly from behind me, "Shu Jiao." No matter how panicked I was and how much I wanted to leave, my legs were still frozen in place uncontrollably, and a tingling sensation spread from the back of my head to my chest. I turned back slowly. Pei Yunjian stood in the middle of the corridor, arms folded, looking at me. "Haven't seen you for a long time." Even though I really want to ignore it, numb myself, and deceive myself, but the chill on my back forced me to admit one thing. Pei Yunjian, remember me, or rather, he never forgot me at all. Pei-du discovered Xiaobao's existence. This was beyond my expectation. I just couldn't understand why, after 7 years, a rich young man would be so possessive of a married woman and even play the game of snatching her cell phone like a child. Pei Yunjian did not lose his memory. I was mentally prepared for this before. After all, the probability of recovering from an illness and losing memory is really too low. If I hadn't heard Pei-du say with my own ears that his uncle had lost memory, I probably wouldn't have let my guard down like that. I had a splitting headache. worried that it would be more difficult to send Pei-du away once he knew that I was a single mother. But what worried me more was Pei Yunjian's attitude. His expression was too calm. Now that I thought about it, he had been testing me in a subtle way, watching me pretend not to know him again and again. What is brewing in his mind? I always feel that a storm is coming. What you think about during the day, you dream about at night. That night, I dreamed of the rainy night when I left the port city. The flight was delayed due to weather conditions. I met Pei Yunjian for the first time when I was waiting for the flight in the VIP lounge. Several people who were accompanying him followed behind him, looking cautious. Pei Yunjian was not dressed like the stereotypical domineering CEO. He wore a dark blue jacket with a white shirt underneath. No watch. His fingers were long and slender, veins were on the back of his hands, and he was holding a tablet, which felt light and fluttery, like a piece of paper, at that time. His hair was not as long as it is now, his sideburns were neat and tidy, and there was a red mole next to his ear. He was walking very fast, and turned his head to talk to other people in Cantonese at a very fast speed. When he passed by me, his tablet accidentally hit my box. He turned around and took advantage of the moment when everyone was discussing to say I'm sorry. In a quick glance, we looked at each other by chance. Pei Yunjian looked at me again. Maybe it was because of my red and swollen eyes, or maybe it was because of my slightly surprised expression, because I found that he looked a bit like Pei-du. The second time we met was in Haisha. At that time, I started a business with several classmates. While having dinner together, I unexpectedly met Pei Yunjian outside the restaurant. He seemed to be alone, holding a small ashtray and smoking in the downwind direction. He saw me. The orange and yellow street lights and colorful neon lights were reflected on the wet asphalt road, like crackling candies falling into the drizzle. My first thought at that time was, he does look very manly. Pei Yunjian greeted me with a gentle and polite smile. Excuse me, do you know where XXX is? It is so enchanting. It is true, not to mention my good friend fanned the flames, patting me on the back and saying, if the new doesn't come, the old won't go. Don't dwell on the breakup, you're an urban beauty. Don't waste your youth, seize the opportunity and have fun. I was somehow led onto that sweet road that seemed to be paved with candy. What happened next? When I knew his last name was Pei, I had some guesses in my mind, but it was not easy to ask him directly if he knew Pei-du. Having dated an ex-boyfriend like that, it always feels like I'm talking about my criminal past. Later, it was hinted that it did seem to be related to the Pei family in Gangcheng, but Pei Yunjian was modest and low-key, and always told others that he was just an insignificant side branch. I was used to Pei-du's description of his uncle as a vicious and ferocious person, and I never thought of the gentle and refined Pei Yunjian as that kind of person. As fate would have it, we didn't even realize that we had a deep connection with each other, until, on a pleasant evening, Pei Yunjian and I lay on the sofa in the warm darkness, watching a movie. He casually held out his phone in front of me and said, "You haven't met my family yet, right? This is my nephew, Pei-du. He's really annoying." I was completely stunned in his arms. Staring blankly at the photo on the screen, Pei Yunjian sighed. "This kid is in trouble again. I don't know what's wrong with him. He drinks and makes trouble. One moment he's beating up his friends, and the next moment he's destroying the house. He really must have taken the wrong medicine." In the photo, Pei-du was distraught, leaning on his bodyguard with drunken and confused eyes. Pei Yunjian took back his phone, replied to the message, and rubbed his forehead. It seems that they broke up. Just because of such a trivial matter, my sister-in-law almost had a heart attack. It's really good, he frowned, as if these worldly affairs were more difficult to deal with than work. So much so that he didn't notice my abnormality at first. Pei Yunjian quickly sent a message, sighed, and finally said awkwardly, "I have to go back to Hong Kong City right away. They can't control him. Xiaojiao, I'm sorry. I can only make an appointment on the weekend." I forced a smile and nodded. After he left, I felt a mess. Countless thoughts flashed through my mind. No, how come when I'm in a relationship, each one of my boyfriends has a wealthier family than the other? Wait, uncle, nephew, is this illegal? Will I get arrested? No one told me that Pei-du's uncle looked so young. In the end, It comes down to one conclusion: it's really not appropriate to split up. The day after Pei Yunjian returned to Gangcheng, I waited until he finished his work and then told him everything, include my ex-boyfriend is his nephew, Peidu. The ex-girlfriend he just complained about who drove his nephew crazy was me. When Peidu was still drunk and half asleep, he was urged by Pei Yunjian to call me little aunt on the phone, and it was me. The relationship is complicated. After I finished speaking, I heard a long silence. Pei Yunjian's breathing became very heavy. Xiao Jiao, let's talk about it in detail after I get back. Okay. Pei Yunjian is a smart man. He knows why I confessed everything. But after thinking about it, I decided to speak out immediately and cut the Gordian knot. No need to elaborate. Yunjian, I think we are not suitable. Let's break up now. Since then, after some twists and turns, I was wondering again, having moved several times in the past year. My desire to settle down has only grown stronger, and it was then that I discovered Xiaobao's existence. It was also at that time that I learned that the success rate of burp bags for children is not 100%, but 98%. It was at that time that I deeply realized that Pei Yunjian was not just saying it casually when he said he paid attention to exercise and health preservation. The cooperation contract was sent as scheduled. What's even more bizarre is that Peidu seemed to have disappeared and never appeared again. Everything went more smoothly than planned and I flew back to Haisha early. However, standing at the door of the house was the evil star that I thought would never bother me again. It turned out that Peidu had already flown to High City. I rubbed my forehead hard, feeling helpless. Peidu, have you lost your dignity now? Do you have any shame to block the door of a married woman's house? Peidu crossed his arms, determined to get it. I checked. You haven't obtained a certificate. You are a single child. I was stunned for a second, carefully studying his smug expression, and finally understood what he meant. I said in disbelief, "You don't think that's your child?" I couldn't help but ask, "Are you crazy?" Peidu just sneered. "Shu Jiao, you can keep your mouth shut." Peidu looked at me and said, "Shu Jiao, I know you still love me, but I never thought that you loved me so much that you dared to secretly take my child away." I said seriously, "He is not your child." Peidu sighed and put his arm around my shoulders. "Why do you keep giving me such a hard time if you are so reluctant to let me go?" He said, 7 years of temper is enough. "Do you really want our child to be fatherless from the moment he is born?" I said expressionlessly. "Are your ears stuffed with hair? Can't you understand what I'm saying?" Peidu frowned and said, "Shu Jiao, can you use your brain? Why are you trying to compete with me? I tell you, even if you earn $1 million a year, you are just an employee. What can you compare with me? I can give him a better environment for growth." Me. How can he cheat if he has been influenced by his parents since he was young? Peidu, you haven't even raised yourself well, and you are meddling in other people's children. Peidu had a bad temper to begin with, and the previous few sentences were the limit of his patience. He took a deep breath and was about to speak. The elevator door opened and the aunt came in with Xiaobao. Peidu's expression changed instantly. He squatted down and stared at the face that was almost exactly the same as he was when he was a child. His expression was excited and complicated. He held Xiaobao in his arms and looked back at me. Although he was still kneeling on one knee on the ground, his eyes were full of arrogance of a superior. "Shu Jiao, don't be stubborn. Once a woman has a child, she is like a kite that cannot fly away. You and I will be inseparable for the rest of our lives." I squatted down with a blank expression, picked up a hair from Xiaobao's shoulder and handed it to Peidu. "Peidu, there should be a limit to how crazy you can be. Go get tested. Don't be a coward. If the result is not positive, can you please get out of here?" Peidu smiled contemptuously, but he could not stand provocation, so he took the hair anyway. He touched Xiaobao's head. "Baby, I came in a hurry and didn't bring you any gifts. Take this credit card and use it as you like." Xiaobao quickly put his hands behind his back and hid behind me. Peidu stared at us. "I came to Haisha to negotiate business with Dinghui on behalf of Yunmaro Group. Shu Jiao, see you at the company." He left. Xiaobao held my hand and asked softly, "Mom, who is he?" "He's a second-generation rich man who's a human trafficker with a bad personality. If you run into him in kindergarten, don't follow him," Xiaobao hummed. In order to divert his attention, I asked the nanny to watch TV with him. I'm going to work. When he went out of the study to drink some water, I saw him staring at the TV very seriously. On the screen, the TV shows highly intelligent genius baby sneaked out while the heroine was sleeping. The little actor shouted, "I want to go find my dad. I didn't see it wrong. The man I saw at the airport just now must be my dad. I want my mom and dad to live happily together." The nanny watched with great interest. I squeezed the cup tightly and turned away. I know why Pei-du is so interested in me. From childhood to adulthood, there are very few things that he cannot get. Because of this, the more he cannot get something, the more it arouses his fighting spirit and he is determined to get it. This kind of paranoia is often mistaken for love, and the rich's lavish and vigorous pursuit of love seems more like the kind of love that is worth desiring. At 21, it's okay to have some fun. At the age of 28, I respectfully decline. I pushed the cooperation matters to other people to coordinate and stayed out of the spotlight. This not only avoided unnecessary jealousy from colleagues, but also avoided dealing with Pei-du. The company is going to open a branch in North City, which is a good opportunity but also a challenge. I had been hesitating before, but now I have made a decision directly. Pei-du rented the house opposite me. Always find opportunities to talk to Xiaobao, use all the sugar-coated bullets. The noise was so loud that I was afraid it would alarm Pei Yunjian in the port city, but I couldn't make it public, so I could only speed up the transfer. One day, Xiaobao, who was forced to wear a toy robot, suddenly asked me, "Mom, is the man opposite really my dad? Will we live together forever?" The question is easy to answer, but what is the purpose of his question? Does he long for a father, too? I wanted to ask, but I remained silent again. I suddenly thought of something. Pei Yunjian, because of the accident, seems to be still unmarried. The evening TV show had already reached the scene where the father and son recognized each other, the male and female protagonists, whose misunderstanding has not yet been resolved, look at each other in the rain. The male protagonist knelt on the ground with a plop. "You caused Qianqian to lose her virginity. So I forced you to pay her with a kidney. The grudge is settled. Yian, for the sake of the child, you must reconcile with me. He needs a father." The genius baby also cried and said, "Mom, please forgive Dad. He almost died because of you." Xiaobao stared at the TV with such seriousness that his brows were slightly furrowed. I suddenly felt a little empty and bottomless in my heart. The question that had been lingering in my heart came to my mind again, but I still didn't dare to ask. I just suddenly wanted to smoke a cigarette. On Xiaobao's birthday, Pei-du received the belated paternity test report. He did not open it immediately. Instead, he treated it as a gift and planned to announce the surprise after Xiaobao blew out the candles. He was confident that he would win, and concluded that Xiaobao's birthday wish must be to have a father, and he would naturally help him realize his wish in the next second. I watched coldly. Because I know that Pei-du is a difficult but delicate person, only when I make him look bad and humiliate him to the point of heartbreak, will he become like someone with PTSD and be so embarrassed that he wants to stay as far away from me as possible. He booked the children's playground, and Xiaobao and his friends played in the ocean ball and trampoline downstairs. The envelope containing the paternity test report was lightly pushed to my desk. Pei-du showed mercy and said, "Xu Jiao, I can keep it intact. I'll give you a way out. Just put on this ring and we'll get engaged. Let Xiaobao recognize his ancestry." Me, Pei-du, we agreed. "If I'm lying, you can do whatever you want to me, but if what I said is true, you can go back to where you came from and swear not to bother me again." Pei-du nodded. "Okay." He looked at me with almost pity. "There is no winner in love, Xu Jiao. Why do you have to hold on for the sake of your self-esteem? I really can't bear to see you refuse to give up until the end." I sneered and was about to speak, when suddenly, "Xiao-du," when I heard the voice, my pupils shrank instantly and I looked at the person in disbelief. He walked over slowly. "You said it was urgent. It's Pei Yunjian." Pei-du was also stunned. He forced himself to keep a straight face, thinking of my presence. "Uncle, why are you here? Where's my mom?" Pei Yunjian said calmly. "You were so anxious to get your mother to come to High City. You are getting more reckless as you get older. Your mother has not been in good health in recent years. I, as her brother-in-law, know all about it, don't you? As her son, know about it. I sat opposite Pei-du at the square table. Pei Yunjian sat next to me with dignity. The three of us are like a strange big triangle, with undercurrents surging between us. Pei Yunjian looked at Pei-du and said, I just happened to be in High City for something, so I came here by the way. What trouble have you gotten into? Do you have to hide it from me and let your mother handle it for you? Pei-du held the envelope and heard children laughing and screaming outside the window. He was wavering and didn't know how to explain it. I looked at his appearance. He had just vowed to force me to marry him. But now that he met the head of the Pei family, he was so scared that he didn't dare to say a word. Pei-du really hasn't changed over the years. Pei Yunjian glanced at his watch, placed 2 fingers on the envelope and tapped it lightly. Alright, stop thinking about the words, just tear it down and end this farce quickly. Uncle, you. Pei-du was surprised. He was uneasy and thought that Pei Yunjian had guessed the relationship between Pei-du and me. As I looked at Pei Yunjian's expression, which was so calm that it made him feel cold, a deeper guess arose in my mind. Uncle. Actually, I wanted to say this the last time I brought her to see you, but the timing wasn't right. Pei-du suddenly stopped. He looked at the paternity test report he had just opened. His fingers trembled and the paper trembled with it. He glanced again in disbelief. Then he suddenly looked up at me. He opened his mouth, but no words came out. The extremely proud posture before completely collapsed like a balloon that was punctured, despite the accident involving Pei Yunjian. What needs to be said still needs to be said. I said, Pei-du, the child is not yours, right? Pei-du slowly clenched the paternity test in his hand. His eyes were red and his breathing was rapid. With his head down, he looked like a defeated dog, in a state of disgrace. The papers made a crackling sound as he squeezed them. According to our agreement, you should go back to where you came from. I hope you won't interfere in our lives anymore. No, he whispered. I frowned. He looked up suddenly. It's mine. I laughed angrily. What nonsense are you talking about? It should be clearly written there. Pei-du dodged my hand that was about to take the certificate. His eyes turned red and he said stubbornly, It's mine. If I say it's mine, it's mine. After saying that, without waiting for my reaction, he tore up the papers. I was dumbfounded. He is absolutely crazy. Pei-du. I gritted my teeth and stood up to stop him. But Pei Yunjian was faster than me. He gently pressed Pei-du's arm with the back of a table knife. The words were spoken so lightly, as if casually. Is it yours? So you just snatch it? Pei-du was completely dumbfounded. He glared at Pei Yunjian. This was the first time he had the guts to glare at his uncle for so long. He figured it all out. Pei-du was so angry that his throat tasted fishy and he was about to vomit blood. My head started splitting when I heard what Pei Yunjian said. Pei-du stood there trembling and gasping as if he had been punched. He smoothed out the crumpled appraisal report, compared the values one by one, and finally figured out what was wrong. You knew it a long time ago. No wonder the paternity test was sent to me 2 days late. They gave it to you first. Pei Yunjian was calm and composed. Finally, a little indifference as a businessman was exposed. He didn't answer, but just said to me, do another test. I brought professionals with me, and the results will be available before the children's park closes. I pursed my lips tightly. Pei Yunjian is obviously more difficult to deal with than Pei-du. He came prepared. Those gentle eyes looked at me and started to say hello. I'm fine, and everyone is fine as a makeshift measure. Xiao Jiao, Pei-du betrayed you. But I didn't. I'm innocent, right? You don't believe he would be a good father. So don't you believe me? In 7 years, he became more and more unfathomable. When did he know about Xiaobao's existence? And when did he start to set up this plan? Let Pei-du take the initiative to do the appraisal with me first. Let him fall into the trap himself, prove himself, and sever all ties with Xiaobao and me. At the same time, I knew Pei-du's delicate nature and made him look bad in front of me. In the future, Pei-du would definitely not dare to mention the past between him and me in front of others. After all, the biggest obstacle between Pei Yunjian and me is Pei-du, who is like a bomb that can explode at any time. As long as Pei-du keeps silent, no one will know, or no one will dare to investigate my past. You don't believe he will be a good father, so you don't believe me either. I pondered this sentence twice in my mind and finally connected everything. I see, you knew that a long time ago. Pei Yunjian didn't say anything. This is the default for smart people. He had known that I had come to Hong Kong City, and had known that Pei Du was pestering me. He let everything go just to create a sense of contrast for me. The reckless and brainless Pei Du aroused Xiaobao's desire for a father, but I really can't compromise with Pei Du, so in the end, for the sake of my child who longs for fatherly love, I will turn around and choose him, who is better and more legitimate. The mantis stalks the cicada, unaware of the oriole behind. Pei Yunjian's temperament became more and more patient. He just looked at me and gently advised, Pei Du is right. The child needs a father. Xiao Jiao, I won't force you to make a choice, but I think you shouldn't reject a happier future for your child. This matter is related to Xu Chainan. You should let Ainan make her own choice. Right, he waved. The staff downstairs coaxed Xiaobao in with a smile. Pei Yunjian's smile was kind and inviting. He has always had excellent looks, and children are all obsessed with looks, so they are naturally close to him. Xiaobao walked over without knowing why. He smiled and said, Anan, do you want to have another father? If you want someone to love and care for you together with your mother, can you do another paternity test with me? Xiaobao looked at him and then at me. He kept backing away, and then actually ran away very quickly. Pei Yunjian did not give up. He whispered to the staff, catch up with him and talk to him nicely. Just tell him that I have bought the ocean park here. If he is willing to do the appraisal, he can come here every day to play, not only here, but also all the parks in Gangcheng. He can play as he pleases. Pei Du couldn't believe it. He didn't expect that the money he paid for all the tickets would eventually go into the wallet of his uncle who stole from his house. I was so confused and my back was cold. I sat in the chair and couldn't utter a word. Pei Yunjian is a very skilled player and knows that I respond to soft words and not hard ones. None of his words were coercive, but every word was a show of power. The TV scenes that Xiaobao had watched flashed through my mind like slides. I am 28 years old now and I no longer have any illusions about marrying into a wealthy family and living a free and comfortable life. But Xiaobao is still young. And he would like a wider and richer life. And there is nothing wrong with that. He likes watching those TV series. The baby is back. When I heard these words, my originally uneasy heart turned into coldness. It's not his fault. If I were his age, I would make the same choice. What's more, he likes to watch TV dramas about couples getting back together, and he always watches them very seriously. I turned my head. Pei Yunjian looked at Xu Chainan who had returned and said to me with a smile, although we both know it, I will make the same agreement as Pei Du for the sake of courtesy. Xu Chainan pursed his lips tightly and handed the hair to Pei Yunjian. Pei Yunjian's entourage quickly took samples and left. Pei Yunjian said, Xiao Jiao, if the child is not mine, I will leave and never bother you. He said this very casually. If the child is mine, I will be responsible for you. We will get married, raise an An, and live a good life. This sentence is his key point. He spoke very slowly, as if he was proposing, Uncle, Pei Du, I have wiped your butt so many times over the years. Are you going to quarrel with me over this? Pei Yunjian interrupted indifferently. Pei Du's face turned pale, and he fell into his chair, saying nothing. I clenched my fingers. He is my child. His last name is Xu, not Pei. Pei Yunjian smiled very gentlemanly. Then let's wait for the results of the appraisal. Xiao Jiao, let's wait for the results. Those few hours seemed as long as years. My brain hurts. I thought about the day I gave birth to Xu Chainan. I named him. I gave him my last name. He is completely mine. He is the first person in this world who belongs to me completely. From the beginning to the end, I never thought about telling Pei Yunjian about this. Because I know if we co-parent, even if he is a piece of flesh that fell off during my pregnancy, he must have the surname Pei, become a member of the Pei family, obey his father's words, and become a person like his father, and I will become an unknown commoner wife among the wives of wealthy families, and be called Mrs. Pei or Mrs. Pei. I never want to live this kind of life. At first, I just wanted a child to completely continue everything I have and witness my existence. But during the process of raising him, Xiaobao loves me and I also love Xiaobao. I deeply understand that he is a self-aware person, and I also deeply love his lovely soul. I don't want to marry Pei Yunjian. But Xiaobao wants a father. Don't his wishes matter? What on earth should I do? Night falls. The outcome came faster than I expected. In the evening, the identification results were delivered. It just happened that Xiaobao and the others were blowing out the candles. Childish birthday songs and applause could be heard from the children's restaurant. Xiaobao, standing among his friends, closed his eyes tightly and made a wish seriously. The timing is perfect, Pei Yunjian said. He tore open the file bag and whispered to me, Xiao Jiao, I have booked a flight back to Hong Kong City tomorrow. When we get to Hong Kong City, let's celebrate his birthday together again. Okay. He smiled and lowered his head. We stared at the appraisal report whose results were already known to everyone. It doesn't fit the relationship. These 7 words shocked all of us present, including myself. My whole body was numb, my mind went blank. I was the only one present who knew that apart from the 2 of them, I had never had sex with anyone else. Shu Chenan's biological father is Pei Yunjian. But how could this happen? Pei Du looked at the dazed Pei Yunjian with resentment and complacency, and said in a venting tone, Uncle, is it yours? Are you just grabbing it? Original words returned. Pei Yunjian, however, had no intention of arguing with Pei Du. He stared at the pieces of paper, checking the numbers one by one. I read that sentence over and over again, and I couldn't believe that there was really a knot in front of conforms to. There were a few cheers and applause from the children's restaurant. Xiaobao has made his wish and started cutting the cake. I forced myself to keep my composure. Pei Yunjian, since it's not the case, please keep your word. Fortunately, he did not tear his face off like Pei Du did and directly tore up the appraisal certificate. Pei Yunjian couldn't afford to lose face with this person. He simply placed the appraisal certificate upside down on the table, frowned, and slowly raised his head. His eyes were not looking at me, but at Xiaobao in the restaurant. Xiaobao, who was dividing the cake, noticed the look. He raised his head and inadvertently met Pei Yunjian's eyes, then quickly turned his back and pretended not to see it. Pei Yunjian is a smart man. We almost figured out what was going on at that moment. I want to test again. Before Pei Yunjian finished speaking, I interrupted him and said expressionlessly, Boss Pei, I have to accept the loss. You said it yourself. Respect the child's choice. Pei Yunjian took a deep breath and closed his eyes. He finally gave up. I breathed a sigh of relief. Pei Du, who still didn't understand what was going on, was still venting his anger. Uncle, did you hear me? You have to admit defeat. You're not going to deny it, are you? Pei Yun admonished. Shut up. He stood up with a sullen face and asked someone to take Pei Du out. It seems that there is a new passenger on the Hong Kong City flight he booked. Pei Yunjian did not leave immediately. He said calmly, Shu Jiao, I think you don't want to see me again. I will just say one more thing. You don't have to bother going to Beicheng. I promise you that I will not come to Haicheng to find you again. I nodded. Thank you, Mr. Pei, but this is my business. Pei Yunjian looked at me deeply, as if he wanted to say something, but in the end he restrained himself and swallowed it back. He strode away, just like when I first met him. He walked in a hurry. No more nostalgia. The past relationship is gone. This time, he didn't look back. I stood there and suddenly felt my palms getting warm. Someone held my hand. Hand me a piece of cake, Xiaobao said hesitantly. Mom, you have to buy a gift for Ping. I just pulled out his hair too much and he's still crying now. He ran out just now just to cheat. I sighed and squatted down. Why do you do this? He looked at me in confusion. Because I don't understand. Mom, I don't understand those TV shows, so I watched them very carefully and tried very hard. But I still don't understand. He touched my face and asked, why do the kids in TV dramas insist on finding someone else to share their love when they obviously have so much love? Why do they force their mothers to fall in love with someone else when it's clear their mothers don't want to? Mom, you and I are so happy. Because we are so happy. I don't want others to share your love. Nor do I want others to share my love with you. I don't even want to have a brother or sister, so why would I want a noisy new father? He sighed like an adult. Of course, if you like, I might be able to accept a new member in the family, but if you are not happy about it, then I am even less happy about it, he grumbled and announced to me in a serious tone. Mom, you have to know one thing. I just realized it recently, too. I may be a selfish child, I imitated his sigh. He is also a smart kid. I was so worried that I even forgot that a kid like Xiaobao's age would cry for a long time even if I gave his friend an extra candy. How could he agree to have a new father in the family so readily? I was also influenced by the TV series. I touched his head. Xiaobao is still struggling with the topic of selfishness. He said seriously, I think I will be a child-faced wolf when I grow up. What? I will hide my true colors, smiling at others on the surface. But actually I am a sinister villain, and I will play with people in the palm of my hand, and after I turn evil, I will become a big boss who destroys the world. He was worried but couldn't hide his excitement. This may be my destiny. I touched his head again. Are children nowadays already in the middle school stage so early? You really need to watch less TV. Xiaobao was dejected. We walked back to the children's restaurant together and completed this unexpected birthday party together. I never saw Pei Du and Pei Yunjian again. The cooperation was not terminated. Pei Yunjian is a businessman who keeps his promises. I got a promotion and a raise. After kindergarten, we moved to the North City together, where Xiaobao went to elementary school. And I became busier than before. I only caught a glimpse of the Pei family's current situation through occasional gossip. Pei Du had the idea of seizing power. His expression remained unchanged. He turned his head slightly and continued to chat and laugh with the people around him. It was obvious that Pei Yunjian still showed mercy to Pei Du's men out of family affection, and those projects were exactly what he had decided on before the accident, as expected. His amnesia was just an excuse for others to let their guard down and reveal their true colors. I might be able to figure out some of his thoughts, but I could never figure him out. For example, I am still not sure whether he knew that I had talked to Pei Du. Does he really feel the same way about me as I do about him? Love at first sight, or is it a deliberate seduction with full interest? All I know is that living with a man like this is definitely a very tiring thing. You never know whether his sincerity is fake or whether his joke is real. I decided not to worry about it anymore and focus on the future. Shu Chainan and I will always be happy. Maybe it wasn't until he hit puberty in junior high school and turned into a loud, rebellious brat.